I moved to a new town after a breakup made friends with a guy I thought was just being nice. Months later, I realized we'd basically been dating and I had no idea. When he held my hand, it finally clicked. I know it probably sounds bad, but hear me out. In my head, it's a long story, but I'm gonna try to keep it as short as possible. Sorry if it sounds choppy. Also, English isn't my first language. Last year, I had to move in with my parents because I was having a hard time finding a new place to rent after a really bad breakup. My parents and I don't get along great for a lot of reasons, and it made everything a lot worse. So to get out of that, I eventually decided to apply for some jobs in other places. At the time, I really didn't want to since I'd lived in that city my whole life, and I liked my job, but I just couldn't stay with my parents anymore. I found a job pretty quickly because this hotel was reopening after changing owners, and they weren't finding staff easily, so I ended up moving here in October. In the beginning, I wasn't socializing much because it's really hard to find friends here when everyone already knows everyone. My country and region are doing well, no confirmed cases in town yet, but it definitely didn't help with making friends. I've also been pretty busy because I decided to buy a house. It just kinda happened because my boss knew the previous owners and it was super cheap since it needed a lot of work, but it definitely made this move feel very permanent. Then in May, this guy, let's call him Eric, and I got stuck in the social distancing queue outside the pharmacy together and started talking. I told him I was new, and he invited me to a BBQ with his friends. Not gonna lie, I'm not great with new people, but they made me feel welcome and were all very nice. After that, we just kept hanging out, mostly me and Eric, which I thought was because he was quite careful during these times and only saw his big group of friends outside. Plus, we were the only two who weren't in a relationship or had kids, so it made sense in my head that we were alone a lot. I'd cook him dinner, lunch, I'm a chef, and he'd show me great hiking places and help out a lot with the renovations on the house. I also started telling him about the breakup and stuff, and even though I feel like I've moved on, it was still nice that he was so understanding. Like, I always thought it sounded so cheesy when people talked about knowing like a week into a friendship or relationship that it was going to be different, but that's the only way I can describe what it's felt like. I promise now that I'm writing it down, it's so obvious, but I honestly didn't think much of it since I've never dated a guy before. Then, like 2 to 3 weeks ago, he called and asked if I wanted to have dinner on my next night off, and also said just you and me. He seemed kind of weird and formal, but I assumed it was something else going on and just said yes to, which he responded, "It's a date then." And I assumed he meant that as a jokey line because I have friends who have in the past. He picked this restaurant in another town that was relatively fancy that I'd never been to, and I drove him home afterwards and he told me good night and that he'd had a great time. Usually we're not that formal with each other, but we weren't really acting that different during dinner, so again, I didn't think much of it. Then over the next week or so, he started sending hearts in texts and would call me some pet names here and there, which is the first thing that stood out to me a lot. Then earlier this week, he grabbed my hand while we were out during his lunch break, and that's when it finally clicked. It really caught me by surprise and I didn't know how to react, so I tried to play it cool and go along with it. Then yesterday, he texted and asked if we were still on for our movie night on Sunday, and I just said, yeah, of course. And I'm starting to panic a bit. I grew up pretty conservative and I guess didn't question my gender a lot even when I got to university and a lot of other people were. I've always been awkward when it comes to that stuff, and I never really made the first move with any of the girls I've dated. But I've been thinking about it for the last few days and I've realized I really like him. And all the stuff he's done never made me uncomfortable. Quite the opposite, actually. He's cute, definitely. What I would have said is my type, but like a guy version, and it feels different than any friendship I've ever had. Like, again, looking back, I definitely haven't been acting super platonic with him, and we've gotten close really fast, and if I'm being honest, if he'd been a girl, I also would have assumed that's where this was going. I guess my issue is, should I tell him next time I see him that I didn't realize we were dating? Should I wait? Does he need to know I don't want him to feel embarrassed that he assumed or think that I'm using him to figure myself out? But I also don't want to lie. I genuinely want to see where this goes since he makes me really happy. TLDR. I moved to a new town after a bad breakup with a girl. Met this guy, thought we were just instantly good friends. I didn't realize he was actually asking me out, then realized it when he held my hand when we went for lunch. I thought about it, and I really like him a lot. Should I tell him I didn't realize we were dating? And that he's the first guy I've ever dated, or should I wait a bit? Not tell him at all? Update. So we had our dinner/movie night yesterday, and I was very nervous. Mostly because I was scared that how new it was to me was going to be a deal breaker. But Eric came over and I think he instantly realized I was acting weird. He didn't say anything while he was helping me cook, but then, when we sat down to eat, he almost immediately asked what was up. So I basically said something like, "I really like you, and I want to see where this goes, but I want you to know it's very new to me, and I'm not sure you're cool with that." And he asked what exactly was new to me, and I said I'd only dated girls before, which then led to a conversation where I couldn't avoid telling him that I didn't realize we were dating until that lunch. He actually got really quiet for a few seconds after that, and I was scared he was upset, but then he just laughed. Basically, he thought I'd been flirting with him for quite some time. Looking back, I probably was just not intentionally, and all of his friends had been saying like, "He seems so into you, it's really obvious. He's probably just too shy to make the first move." He even mentioned some other stuff we or I had done that I gotta admit, definitely doesn't sound platonic when he retells it, so I can see why they thought that, and ultimately they were right, I guess. And during that lunch, he'd apparently thought I was reaching to grab his hand, so he reached out too, otherwise he probably wouldn't have done it, because he said he's never been good at making the first move physically. He said, when he asked me to dinner, that was a huge deal, and his friends had tried to hype him up for a while, and that's probably why I didn't realize that he was asking me out, since he was super nervous. Anyway, we ended up talking a lot after dinner. He didn't come out publicly, aside from a few close friends, until a year or so ago either, so he definitely understood that I don't have a lot of experience. He hasn't had a lot of relationships in general, at least not any proper and public ones since he hadn't come out. And it's a pretty conservative area, so there aren't a lot of guys who are out of the closet here. He actually admitted that he'd even been nervous to talk to me that first time we met, since I looked kind of lumberjacky. His words, not mine, though. The day we met, I think I hadn't shaved in a while, so I don't doubt it. And he also knows rumors travel fast here, especially when someone doesn't really fit in, so I guess he was worried that I'd fit the small-town conservative type, or have heard all the gossip. The whole "it's a date" thing, for example, would never happen between two guys who are just friends here. I've definitely noticed the culture, and it's something we talked about too, since being out here isn't always easy, so we might try to keep it low-key at first, and mostly tell his friends and some of mine. I could probably ramble on about him and what we talked about for a long time, but to keep it short, it was a really nice talk, and we want to take it slow, but we also realize we've basically been half dating since May, so it felt weird not to make it official. So I guess I've got a boyfriend now, thanks guys. TLDR. The talk went great. We discussed all the misunderstandings, and he had no issues with me never having dated a guy before, especially since he hasn't been out for long. So, we're officially together now. Edit. I really didn't expect this to get as much attention as it did, but I truly appreciate all the kind words, and I'm really happy you found some joy in this story that just started with me being oblivious and confused. I might actually have to show this to Eric because all the support is making me really emotional over here. Edit 2. I'm kind of shocked at the number of comments on here. I thought there were a lot, just when I went to bed a few hours ago. It's overwhelming in a lot of different ways, to say the least. I only started using Reddit for renovation advice, and that usually gets me a few helpful comments, so I guess that's what I thought would happen here too. Thank you for all of your love, though. I'll try to respond to a few questions later when I'm not feeling as overwhelmed, but I'm sorry that I can't answer you all. Edit 3. Okay, last update before I log out. I'm very overwhelmed in a lot of different ways, and I think it's best for my anxiety to exit this now. I know it sounds silly since I posted on here asking for comments, but I'm just not good at getting attention, and I didn't expect more than a handful of helpful comments, since that's what I usually get on my main account when I ask about renovations. I guess I should have prepared for the small chance that a lot of people saw this, but after my original post got about 10 or so comments, I didn't think much of it when posting the update. I looked through some of the comments and messages though, and I wanted to answer some of the main questions at least. I'm not American and no, English isn't my first language. The only reason I added that to my main post is because sometimes on my main account, there would be phrases or names of tools I just don't understand or know the word for. I see now maybe that wasn't needed here, and I'm sorry if it confused any of you. I studied English for many years, but school English is very different from internet and everyday English. I know my grammar pretty well and basic vocabulary, but I couldn't do my job in English. Some people asked where I lived and how it could be so conservative. It's just a small town culture that I can't quite explain. Everyone knows everyone, false rumors spread easily. There are some people who are known to cause trouble who grew up here and think they own the place. On top of that, just the general attitude towards everything is very old-fashioned. It's not hard to avoid, but still worrying. I don't use this subreddit. People have mentioned like 5 different posts that are apparently very similar, but based on how many people in the comments have also been in this situation, maybe it's pretty common. I genuinely don't know what you want me to say to that, except I haven't read them and I can't seem find them either. I can only speak for myself, and you can choose to believe me or not, that's up to you. I got the advice I needed, and that's all that matters to me at least. I know this might sound very love story or movie-like, but in reality, it's just me realizing I like someone and wanting to start a relationship with him. My life isn't very exciting, and I prefer it that way, which is why I'm very happy I made this a throwaway account, so I can go back to my regular stuff, haha. And while this is making me quite anxious, I don't regret posting it. Reading other people's stories has been very emotional, and I wish I could handle going through all of them, but I don't think that would be good for me right now. Just know, I appreciate all the advice and love. I didn't want to bring this up because it seemed irrelevant, but after my last breakup, I was probably at my absolute lowest point, and I never expected that I would get to a place where I'm feeling this hopeful, at least not this fast. So again, thank you so much, and maybe I'll update this in the future if something happens, but right now I'm happy to leave it at this. Story 2. I'm in love with my baby's mom, but she wants to leave. So I, 27 male, met Mila, 25 female, like 4 years ago at a bar. Long story short, it was a mutual friend's birthday, we were at this bar, and we had both just gotten out of long-term relationships. Hers was 5 years, mine was 4. A lot of drinking later, it was hella awkward waking up unclothed on the birthday dude's couch with Mila. But honestly, that wasn't even the wildest thing that happened that night. The birthday guy. He did something way worse. Anyway, after all that, me and Mila were both super awkward about it. She legit looked like she wanted to crawl under a rock. Neither of us wanted anything serious since we had just broken up with our exes, but we still swapped numbers and went our separate ways. Fast forward like 3 months. Mila texted me up asking to grab coffee. I thought it was kind of weird, but I figured she might want to go on a date or something. When I got there, she looked like she'd been crying. As soon as I sat down, she just started bawling. Turns out she was pregnant. She hadn't realized because she was super stressed and tired, but I was the only person she'd slept with. My whole life flipped upside down. We did a DNA test, and it was mine. Then she moved in with me because she was sharing a room with a roommate. The guest room became hers, and my office is now Andreas' room, but we call him Andy. Having a kid wasn't exactly in my plans, but since Andy came along, my life's been better, honestly. Over the years, me and Mila never really had a romantic relationship, except for this, one time she kissed me after Andy was born. We get along, I support them. I'm paying for Mila's grad school. She finishes next year, we split the chores, and I'm always there for whatever she needs. So, in November, Andy's gonna turn 3. We've been planning his birthday, it's around Halloween, so he and his friends are all gonna dress up. He wants to go as Bingo from Bluey. During one of our talks, Mila asked if I wanted her to move out. She said now that Andy's 3, we could co-parent separately, and I could even get a girlfriend if I wanted to. I just went blank and said no and dipped to my room. Here's the thing, I love her. Having Andy is everything to me, but I'm also legit in love with her. She's smart, beautiful, caring, thoughtful, kind, dedicated. She's literally the most perfect person ever. But I'm way too scared to tell her. We have a kid together, and I'm terrified of ruining everything between us as parents and friends. I don't know if I should tell her how I feel or just keep pretending everything's fine so I don't mess up what we have. What did the birthday boy do? I hope this doesn't violate any rules in this sub. I didn't comment on the OG post, but I snooped in his comments to see what the heck the birthday boy did. I found out. Man, the real question should be, what did he do on his birthday? We hit up this bar and everyone got totally wasted. Then there was an after party at his place. We walked there and I was up front with Mila and some other friends. After that, all I know is from the stories, because I spend the night with Mila, but apparently he got home barefoot with some random dog he stole from someone's house. He decided to get back at his girlfriend for cheating on him, told everyone about it, and then hooked up with her sister while his girlfriend cried outside the room. He ran around the neighborhood in his boxers and ended up passing out on the lawn, hugging the stolen dog. He still has the dog to this day. We never found the owners. I think dog didn't have any owners. Update 1. So I, 27 male, posted my story a few days ago, and yesterday I finally talked to Mila, 25 female. Quick recap, me and Mila had a baby together after a one-night thing. Ever since we've been living together and I'm in love with her. She's absolutely stunning, breathtaking even, but I've been too scared to tell her how I feel because I didn't want to mess up our co-parenting situation. So I left work early, picked up Andy from nursery and dropped him off at my mom's. I bought some flowers, cleaned up the house while she was in class and texted her saying she didn't need to pick up Andy and to just come home because we needed to talk. When she got home, she looked at me with her big eyes wide open and the first thing she asked about was our kid. I hugged her for a while, but she went full mommy bear mode and kept asking about our baby boy. After I reassured her that he was with my mom and totally fine, she finally calmed down. I brought her to the living room, gave her the bouquet, and started talking. It was a long convo. I told her how I've been scared of ruining things and how it hurt when she asked if I wanted her to leave. She admitted she was afraid she was messing up my life, that she feels like a burden sometimes, and even blames herself for ruining my life with the pregnancy. I shut that down real quick. I never wanted kids, but honestly, since Andy and Mila came into my life, everything's been way better. It's been the best, most challenging mistake I've ever made. She also said she likes me too, and she's felt that way since she was pregnant, but wasn't sure if it was just the hormones. After the baby, she felt embarrassed to say anything because she didn't feel comfortable in her body anymore. She never got back to her pre-pregnancy body and thought I wouldn't find her attractive. But to me, she's the most beautiful and hot woman on the planet. She also admitted she'd get jealous when I went on dates, even though she knew it didn't make sense because we weren't a thing. Honestly, if she went on dates, I'd be jealous too. We talked for a long time, even got into some deeper, more personal stuff. By the time we were done, it was late. We went to this small restaurant near our place for dinner. No wine, because I was driving, but it was amazing. We chatted about music, movies, and she went off about A Song of Ice and Fire for ages while I rambled on about Lord of the Ring. We talked about life and random stuff. At the end of the night, I got a few kisses in the car, like we didn't even live together, which was kind of cute. Then we watched a horror movie, awful movie by the way. But she fell asleep cuddling me. It was a day full of wins. Update 2. Hey guys, so I saw a TikTok video about my story, and it's kinda embarrassing having a piece of my life narrated by AI, haha. I decided to give y'all an update, but first a quick note, please use protection. I read some concerning comments about my situation. Yeah, I was pretty drunk and reckless, and things could have turned out way worse. Don't be like me. Alright, here's what's been going on these past few months. We broke up and she moved to another city. Just kidding, haha. Andy's birthday was amazing. Everyone showed up in costumes and the kids loved it. Andy dressed as Bingo. I went as Bandit and Mila was Chili. Andy was over the moon that we all dressed up, but what melted my heart was when we were getting ready in the bedroom and my little guy said, "I always wanted this." I think the way our dynamic was before, we didn't really have these sweet family moments, and it makes me so happy that my son gets to experience this now. So yeah, we're officially dating now, and it's been nothing short of amazing. She's happy, my little guy is happy, and nothing makes me happier than seeing them like this. Has it been perfect? Nah, it's the start of a relationship with a lot of baggage. We're doing couples therapy because we've been living together and acting as a family way longer than we've been an actual couple. The first month was kinda rough. I felt awkward about being intimate at home, and so did she, mostly because of the family dynamic we had before. But I think we're building something really good. I don't have much else to update for now, but I'll definitely share if anything new happens. I told her about this account, so to the hottest woman alive, you've got my heart. Love you, Amelia, my Mila. Update 3. A while ago I posted here about how I was in love with my baby's mom. I was strongly encouraged to talk to her, and I did. We've been together for 8 months now, and these have been the best 8 months of my life. Everything is worth it as long as I'm with her. Every day during these 8 months, I go to bed knowing that everything I experience with her is worth living. Now for the biggest update, I proposed to her and she said yes. And unlike the first time, we're already planning to give our Andy a little brother or sister right after the wedding. Thank you, Reddit. I think this will be my last update. P.S. The dog. Oswald is fine. Edit other platforms. I saw some really disturbing comments. Some people are really worried about the fact that I pay for stuff for my now fiancé. Just want to say I'm not struggling financially, and even if she didn't want to be with me, I'd still cover everything for her until she had a solid career and a place of her own. My main concern is my son. If I can give him and his mom a better life, why wouldn't I? I think that as a dad, it's my job to make sure my kid has the same opportunities, and I'll keep doing that no matter if I'm with his mom or not.